The first thing I noticed at the relaunch wasn't the new sign. It was the empty space beneath the old one. For 5 years, a small brass plaque had hung above the entrance to our plant. It carried my wife's name and one simple line about what she'd done for us. Now, 2 clean holes showed where the screws had been. Kristen had taken it down. She was standing near the loading dock in a cream-colored suit, smiling at a reporter. Behind her, a blue cloth covered the new company name. Folding chairs filled the section where we normally staged outgoing pallets. Employees stood along the yellow floor lines with paper cups and tired faces. My son, Chad, was at the microphone. He had just finished explaining how he'd transformed our business. He talked about modern leadership, aggressive growth, and the company he'd built through his own vision. Then he looked right at me. "Dad, nobody's taking away what you started," he said. "But this company outgrew the way you ran it." Kristen touched his elbow. She wanted him to stop looking at me and finish the announcement. On a table beside them sat a stack of refinancing papers. A representative from the new lender had already placed colored tabs beside the signature lines. Customers were watching. The local Chamber of Commerce had sent someone. So had Great Lakes Hardware Distribution, our largest account. Kristen turned toward me. "You don't need to worry about the paperwork, Gerald. Chad has it handled." I looked past her toward the finished orders on the dock. There were 3 loaded trailers waiting outside. Their invoices were clipped to a board on the same steel desk I'd used since 1984. That was the part nobody in those folding chairs understood. Not Chad, not the reporter, certainly not Kristen. They thought my signature was an old man's habit, something the staff allowed because nobody wanted to hurt my feelings. They were about to learn why they were wrong. My name is Gerald Foster, and I'm 71 years old. Before I go on, what city are you listening from? 6 weeks before that relaunch, my mornings still began at 4:45. I lived at 612 Belvedere Avenue in York, Pennsylvania. Janice and I bought the house after Chad moved out. She said our first place had too many patch pipes and not enough kitchen counter. After she died, the house became quieter than I expected. I still woke on my side of the bed. I still filled the coffee maker to the line she'd marked with a black pen. I used the brown mug she gave me on our 40th anniversary, though the handle had a hairline crack near the bottom. By 5:20, I was in my truck. The plant sat at 4180 Lux Mill Road. It wasn't much to look at. Gray block walls, a flat roof, and an office addition that never matched the original building. The hand-painted sign over the entrance read, "Foster Precision Fabrication. Family owned since 1984. Janice had insisted we keep that sign. She said shiny letters made people expect shiny prices. Most mornings I arrived before 5:40. Harold Collins was usually there ahead of me. He'd worked on our floor for 30 years and had been the foreman for nearly half of that. That Monday, he was standing beside the time clock with a thermos under one arm. "Morning, Gerald. Anything break overnight?" "Coffee machine." "That's an office problem. It becomes a floor problem in about 20 minutes. I unlocked the cage holding our tooling records. Then I walked the first aisle. The plant smelled like cutting fluid, warm steel, and whatever cleaner the night crew used near the paint booth. I checked the machining cells first. Then I passed inspection, packaging, and the welding bays. I didn't touch every part. I didn't need to. You can tell plenty by looking at where things are sitting. A pallet in the wrong lane means somebody skipped a check. A red tag turned face down usually means somebody doesn't want a supervisor reading it. Chips under a machine tell you whether the cleanup sheet is honest. That morning, everything looked ordinary. At 6, I reached the steel desk beside shipping. The overnight order sheet was waiting under a magnet shaped like a trout. Janice bought that magnet during a weekend in Erie. She'd laughed because the thing was too weak to hold anything thicker than one sheet of paper. I read every line. 3 orders were complete. 2 were waiting on inspection. 1 customer had changed the quantity after production began. Harold had written a note about a damaged crate. The release invoices sat in a gray tray. I signed 4 of them. The smallest was just over $18,000. The largest was nearly $62,000. Once my name was on them, shipping could clear the paperwork and send the trucks out. Nobody stood around watching me do it. Harold was checking a forklift battery. 2 packers were arguing about stretch wrap. A driver was eating crackers over his clipboard. To everyone there, it was just Gerald doing Gerald's morning ritual. That suited me. The signature requirement went back to 2016. We were growing faster than our cash allowed. A large customer wanted more parts, but we needed 2 machining centers and warehouse space to meet the volume. The equipment dealer wouldn't wait. The contractor wanted deposits. Payroll still came every Friday. Fairmount Trust Bank approved a revolving line of credit for $2,400,000. The loan was backed through a federal small business program, but the bank still wanted somebody personally responsible. That somebody was me. I pledged the house. I pledged my pension. I signed a personal guarantee that ran until the line matured in 2031. Under the agreement, I became the sole guarantor signer. Any shipment invoice above $15,000 needed my countersignature before it cleared through the operating line. Nobody could add another authorized signer without my written consent. It wasn't a ceremonial title. It was the bank making sure the man whose house was at risk knew what was leaving the building. Janice sat beside me during the closing. She read every page before I signed it. When we got home, she said, "You signed everything twice today. I only remember signing once. Once for the bank and once for me." After that, she used the joke whenever I complained about paperwork. Most people at Foster Precision knew I had guaranteed the expansion. Very few knew the exact terms. Chad had received copies years earlier. I doubted he'd read them past the first page. At the time, that didn't bother me. Chad was vice president of operations. He owned a minority piece of the company, and he handled scheduling, purchasing, and most customer meetings. He was good at several parts of the job. He could walk a customer through the plant without drowning them in details. He understood newer production software better than I did. He pushed us to upgrade our inspection equipment, and he was right about it. The problem started when being good at his job stopped being enough. He wanted people to think he'd rescued the company. Late the previous year, a regional business magazine printed an article about our contract with Great Lakes Hardware Distribution. The deal gave us several years of steady orders for brackets, hinge plates, and specialty fasteners. The headline said, "Second-generation leader drives York manufacturer's expansion." Yvonne Palmer left a copy on my desk. Yvonne was 66 and had worked with Janice for decades. After Janice died, Yvonne took over most of the bookkeeping. She wore reading glasses on a chain and kept a calculator beside her keyboard, even though the accounting software did the same work. She tapped Chad's picture. "He looks like he's running for governor. He's wearing a new tie." That's not what I meant. I read the article while standing beside her desk. Chad told the reporter he'd identified the opportunity, developed the relationship, and won the account by changing our sales approach. He mentioned me once near the bottom. The article said, "I remained active in an advisory capacity." I folded the magazine. Yvonne watched me. "You're taking that well. Would taking it badly change the ink?" "No. Then I'm taking it fine." What the article didn't say was that Great Lakes almost walked away. Their purchasing director had concerns about our capacity. Chad had given him presentations, projections, and a tour. None of that settled him. I called a retired supplier named Martin Bell. Martin had known the purchasing director for years. He arranged a quiet lunch at a diner outside Harrisburg. I brought our production records, our maintenance schedule, and 3 sample parts. No slides, no sales language. The purchasing director asked me what happened if one of our main machines failed. I showed him the backup agreements I'd made with 2 nearby shops. He asked whether Chad could manage the account. I said, yes, if he listens when the floor tells him no. The contract came through 10 days later. I never told Chad about that lunch. I assumed Great Lakes had mentioned it. Apparently they hadn't. At first I let the article go. A father doesn't need his name in every paragraph. I'd already had my years of introducing myself as the owner, but Chad kept repeating the story. He told it at the Rotary Club. He told it to a local radio host. He told it during a supplier dinner while I was sitting 4 chairs away. Each time, my role got smaller. Kristen encouraged him. She'd never held a position at Foster Precision. She owned no shares. She didn't draw a salary. Still, she began appearing at company events and introducing herself as if she handled strategy. Kristen had married Chad in 2013. She was pleasant when she wanted to be, and she remembered details people told her. That made her easy to like. Janice liked her at first. Later, Janice became more careful. "She listens like she's pricing the room," she told me once. I asked what that meant. Janice shrugged. "I haven't decided yet." The Sunday after the magazine article appeared, Chad and Kristen came to my house for dinner. I made pot roast because it was hard to ruin. Janice used to add rosemary. I always added too much, so I stopped trying. Kristen arrived carrying a salad in a glass bowl. Chad brought a bottle of red wine, though he knew I rarely drank wine. We sat at the kitchen table. Janice's chair stayed empty. I'd tried sitting there once after she died. It felt wrong, so I moved back before finishing breakfast. Halfway through dinner, Kristen put down her fork. "You look tired, Gerald. I got up early. You always get up early. That may explain it." She gave a small laugh. "I'm serious. Chad says you're still getting to the plant before everyone. Harold beats me sometimes. That's not really the point." Chad concentrated on cutting his meat. I looked at him. "What is the point?" He took a drink of wine before answering. "Kristen thinks you could slow down a little." "Does Kristen?" "She worries about you," he said. Kristen leaned forward. "You've earned a break. Nobody's saying you should disappear. Maybe you could come in 3 days a week. Let Chad handle the real day-to-day." I looked toward the refrigerator. 3 pamphlets were stacked beside the fruit bowl. I hadn't put them there. One showed a smiling gray-haired couple walking beside a pond. Another advertised assisted living with private dining and scheduled transportation. The third was from an elder law office. I touched the top pamphlet. Where did these come from? Kristen glanced at them as though she'd forgotten they existed. "Oh, I brought those, just so you have options." "Options for what? For later? I'm already in later." Chad gave me a tired look. "Dad?" "What?" "She's trying to help." I opened the assisted living pamphlet. The monthly price was printed in small type on the back. It cost more than my first shop lease. "Do they have a loading dock?" I asked. Kristen stopped smiling. "Nobody's putting you anywhere." "I didn't say they were. You're making this harder than it needs to be." I closed the pamphlet and set it beside her plate. "What is this?" Chad pushed back slightly from the table. "It's a conversation." "No. A conversation starts before the pamphlets arrive." For a few seconds, nobody spoke. The refrigerator motor came on. Chad rubbed his thumb along the stem of his wine glass. Finally, he said, "You don't need to be the first person in that building every morning." "Why not?" "Because I run operations. That's your title." His face changed. It wasn't anger exactly. It was embarrassment. Kristen answered for him. "He's doing more than the title. He's carrying the place." I looked at my son. "Is that how you feel?" Chad stared down at the table. "I feel like you don't know when to let me do my job." That was the first honest thing anyone had said. I nodded once. "Then tell me which part I'm stopping you from doing." He opened his mouth, then looked at Kristen. She said, "This doesn't need to become an interrogation." It was Chad's complaint. "It's Sunday dinner, Gerald. You brought a lawyer's pamphlet to Sunday dinner." She gathered the papers and squared their edges. They were information, that's all. After they left, I washed the plates by hand. The dishwasher worked perfectly. Janice just preferred washing the good plates herself, and I'd kept doing it without deciding to. When I reached for my truck keys, they weren't on the hook near the back door. I checked my coat, then the counter. I found them in the junk drawer beneath a roll of tape and 2 dead batteries. Kristen had been standing near that drawer while Chad carried dishes to the sink. The next morning, I asked him about it. We were in the production office. He was reviewing overtime requests on his computer. "Did you put my keys in the kitchen drawer last night?" He didn't look up. Kristen did. "Why?" "She thought you might misplace them." "She misplaced them for me." That got his attention. He leaned back. "Dad, it's not a big deal." "Did I ask her to move them?" "No." "Did you?" He sighed. She was trying to be helpful. There was that word again. Helpful. I let the matter drop, but I started paying closer attention. 2 days later, I sat in a supplier meeting with Chad and a sales representative named Neil Carter. Neil supplied the specialty steel we used for the Great Lakes orders. The price had increased again. I asked whether he could lock it for 6 months. Before Neil answered, Chad cut in. "We're moving toward quarterly purchasing." I looked at him. "That's not what I asked." "I know, but I'm handling this." Neil stared at his legal pad. Kristen was sitting against the wall with a laptop open. There was no reason for her to be there. She smiled at Neil. "We're working through a leadership transition." I turned toward her. "Who told you that?" Chad's jaw tightened. "Dad, can we stay focused?" "I am focused." Neil cleared his throat. "I can price both options." "Good," I said. "Do that." Afterward, Chad followed me into the hall. "You undercut me in there. I asked a supplier for a price. You made it look like I don't have authority. You do have authority. Then act like it. I stopped outside Janice's corner. Her roll-top desk sat beneath the small window. Her handwritten payroll ledger was still in the second drawer. The last completed page ended 3 days before she went into the hospital. You have authority over operations, I said. You don't have authority over me. Chad looked through the doorway. For a moment, I thought he might calm down. Instead, he said, "That's the problem. You make everything personal." Then he walked away. On Friday, Yvonne placed the monthly bank folder on my desk. I opened it after lunch. The operating statement was there. The payroll summary was there. The Fairmount Trust line of credit statement was missing. I checked the folder twice. Yvonne? She appeared in my doorway with her glasses resting on top of her head. Did the credit line statement come in? I thought you had it. No. She frowned. It always comes with the operating statement. I know. She went back to her desk and checked the mail log. Janice had started that log years earlier after a customer claimed we'd ignored a certified letter. Yvonne returned holding one sheet. It wasn't entered. Did Chad take the mail? Not that I saw. Kristen? Yvonne hesitated. She was up front Wednesday morning. She said she was waiting for Chad. Did she touch the mail? I don't know. That answer bothered Yvonne more than it bothered me. She lowered her voice. Do you want me to ask her? No. I called the bank's automated line from my office. The balance sounded normal. No missed payment, no warning. Still, the statement should have arrived. That evening, I drove home through light rain. The pamphlets were gone from the kitchen, but one had left a damp ring on the table where Kristen's salad bowl had sat. I put my keys in my pocket instead of on the hook. Then I opened the drawer where Janice kept stamps, envelopes, and address labels. I found an old bank statement and compared the mailing address with our current records. Everything looked correct. At least, everything I could see looked correct. I sat at the table with the statement in front of me. The Fairmount Trust logo was printed across the top. My name appeared beneath the company name because I was the guarantor. Janice used to check that statement line by line. If one arrived a day late, she called the bank before lunch. I could almost hear her asking the question I'd avoided all week. Why would anyone take a document they didn't want me to see? I folded the statement and slipped it into my jacket. The post office opened at 8 the next morning. For the first time since Kristen put those pamphlets on my table, I stopped wondering whether I was being oversensitive. I wanted to know exactly where our mail was going. Saturday morning, I carried my driver's license, an old bank statement, and our company registration papers into the post office. The clerk at the counter was named Amy. I'd seen her before, though we'd never spoken beyond the usual questions about stamps and insurance. I need to check a forwarding request, I said. Residential or business? Business. I handed her the old statement. She typed the plan address into her computer. Then she looked at me. Do you own the business? I do. I need proof that you're authorized to make changes. I gave her the registration papers. She checked my name against the records, then asked me to wait while she spoke with her supervisor. I stepped aside. A man behind me was mailing a box of homemade cookies to Arizona. He and the other clerk spent several minutes discussing whether the heat would damage them. I remember that because it was such a normal conversation. My company's financial mail had disappeared, and 3 feet away, a stranger was worried about chocolate chips. Amy came back with a woman named Mrs. Denton. Mrs. Denton took me into a small office behind the counter. A humming machine sat against one wall. Gray plastic tubs were stacked under a bulletin board. She closed the door. A change request was processed 3 weeks ago, she said. To where? She turned the monitor slightly. The new destination was a post office box at that same branch. Box number 1172. I wrote it on the back of an envelope. Who submitted it? She hesitated. It lists Kristen Foster as the authorized representative. There it was. Not a suspicion, not an impression. Her name. What did she provide to show she was authorized? The request was made online. That wasn't my question. Mrs. Denton adjusted her glasses. It appears the identity verification was completed, using her home address and a card in her name. That proves who she is. It doesn't prove she works for Foster Precision. No, sir, she doesn't. Mrs. Denton looked back at the screen. Is she related to you? She's my son's wife. I understand. She has no position at the company. She has no ownership. She isn't authorized to redirect our mail. The woman nodded slowly. I can give you a dispute form. We can stop the forwarding once it's entered. How long does that take? It should take effect within 1 business day. What happens to anything already delivered? You would need to contact the box holder. I looked at the number on my envelope. I'd rather not do that yet. She studied me for a second, then lowered her voice. We can place a temporary hold on mail addressed to the business while we correct it. You'd have to collect it here. That's fine. I'll also note that future changes require in-person verification from an officer listed in the company records. Do that. She printed the dispute form. The submitted request was attached behind it. Kristen's name appeared in the section for an authorized business agent. She had checked a box saying she was permitted to receive all company correspondence. I took my time reading it. The forwarding covered more than bank statements. It included invoices, tax notices, insurance mail, and anything else sent to the plant through regular post. Can I have a copy? Yes. Mrs. Denton copied the pages and stamped the date on them. I signed the dispute. Then I asked, does the person who submitted this get notified? An automated confirmation may be sent to the email address on the request. So, she'll know I stopped it. She may. I folded the copies and put them inside my jacket. That changed what I did next. If Kristen was about to receive a notice, I couldn't pretend I hadn't seen anything. I also didn't want to call her from the parking lot and give her time to prepare an explanation. I drove straight to the plant. The building was quiet on Saturdays. We ran a short maintenance shift, but production was down. Harold's truck was parked by the side entrance. I found him near the saw area, replacing a worn guard. Didn't expect you today, he said. I needed something from my office. He wiped his hands on a rag. Everything all right? I'm checking. Harold knew when not to fill silence. He nodded toward the office. Side door sticks when it rains. I know. Janice used to make me fix that every fall. You never fixed it right. She never said that part. She told me. He smiled, then went back to the saw. I unlocked the front office and opened the mail log. Yvonne recorded the date, sender, and recipient for anything that looked important. Routine advertising went into a separate basket. I checked the 3 weeks since the forwarding began. The missing bank statement wasn't the only gap. Our workers' compensation carrier usually sent a monthly claim summary. It wasn't listed. A steel supplier mailed rebate notices near the end of each month. That wasn't there either. There were no mailed remittance notices from Great Lakes Hardware. Most large customers paid electronically, but their accounting office still mailed a paper notice showing which invoices the payment covered. Yvonne used those notices to match deposits. I pulled the previous month's folder. There were 4 Great Lakes notices. The current folder had none. That didn't mean money was missing. The notices could have been sitting inside Kristen's box. Still, there was no legitimate reason for her to receive them. I used the copier in Janice's corner. The machine made a grinding noise every 3rd page. Janice used to slap the left side with her palm when it did that. I tried it once. The noise stopped. Still taking orders from you, I said. Her roll-top desk was closed. The brass key sat in the top drawer of my desk where I kept it. I opened the roll-top and pulled out her handwritten payroll ledger. Janice kept those records even after we moved to computers. Every Friday had its own line. Total hours, overtime, deductions, and payroll tax were written in blue ink. She had also made notes in the margins. Check Harold's vacation, call insurance. Chad changed vendor. Nothing got past her because she didn't assume routine things would stay routine. I found an empty legal pad in the bottom drawer. On the first page, I wrote the date Kristen's forwarding request had taken effect. Under it, I listed everything missing from the mail log. I didn't call it evidence. I didn't know what it was yet. I folded the post office copy and placed it inside the ledger. Then I locked the desk. By Monday morning, the forwarding was canceled. I collected 1 plastic tub of held mail before going to work. There was no Fairmount Trust statement. There were no Great Lakes notices. Whatever had already reached Box 1172 was still there. Yvonne arrived just after 6:30. She set her purse beneath her desk and stopped when she saw the tub. What's that? Our mail. All of it? All that was held. She looked at me carefully. I closed the office door. Kristen redirected the company mail to a post office box 3 weeks ago. Yvonne didn't speak. I handed her the copy of the request. She read the first page, then the second. This says she's an authorized representative. She isn't. I know she isn't. Did you ever give her access to the incoming mail? No. Did Chad ask you to? No. She took off her glasses. Gerald, why would she do this? I don't know. You have an idea? I have several. Ideas aren't facts. Yvonne read the form again. Are you going to tell Chad? Not yet. Her head came up. He may know. He may. You don't think he does. I don't know what he knows. That was the truth. Chad had been defensive. He'd allowed Kristen into meetings where she didn't belong. He'd supported the pamphlets and the comments about my schedule. But taking company mail was different. Chad could be careless. He could be vain. He could even convince himself that my work no longer mattered. I wasn't ready to believe he'd knowingly let his wife intercept bank records. Yvonne placed the form flat on my desk. What do you want me to do? Start a second mail log. We already have one. This one stays between us. She didn't ask why. I continued. Scan anything from a bank, customer, insurance carrier, attorney, or government office before it leaves your desk. If Chad asks for the original, give it to him. Just keep the scan. What about Kristen? She gets nothing. She'll complain. Let her. Yvonne pulled the legal pad closer and wrote a list. Do you want me to watch incoming payments? Yes, I already do. Watch where they land, not just how much. She stopped writing. Have you seen something? Only missing notices. Great Lakes, and possibly others. She looked toward Janice's corner. Janice would have called Kristen already. Janice would have known what Kristen was doing before she called. That's also true. I asked Yvonne to request duplicate remittance notices directly from Great Lakes and the steel supplier. I told her to describe it as routine reconciliation. Nothing urgent, nothing that would make Chad curious. Before she returned to her office, I said, one more thing. She waited. If anyone asks why you're doing this, tell them I requested a records review. What kind? The kind an owner is allowed to request. At 8:15, Kristen walked into the plant. She didn't usually arrive that early. She wore a tan coat and carried a paper cup from a coffee shop downtown. She passed Yvonne's desk without saying good morning. Then she came directly into my office. You went to the post office. It wasn't a question. I kept reading the production sheet. I did. You canceled the forwarding? Yes. She stood in front of my desk, waiting for more. I looked up. Why did you redirect our mail? I didn't redirect it. I consolidated it to your box for organization. What needed organizing? Chad said important things were getting lost. Which things? I don't have a list. Who gave you authority? She set her coffee down harder than necessary. Gerald, this is exactly what I mean. What do you mean? Every small improvement becomes a challenge to your authority. You signed a postal form claiming authority you don't have. I was helping Chad. Then Chad could have signed it. He's busy running the company. I leaned back. Did he know you filed it? Her answer came too quickly. Of course. Then why isn't his name on the request? She picked up her coffee. This is ridiculous. It's a simple question. You're acting like I stole something. Did you? Her face went still. Not shocked. Still. Then she gave me a disappointed look. The kind people use when they want to make your question worse than their answer. I can't believe you'd say that to me. I asked whether you took company mail. I was going to bring it in. When? I don't know. This week. The bank statement arrived weeks ago. I haven't opened your bank statement. I didn't ask if you opened it. Her eyes moved toward the hallway. Yvonne was working at her desk. From where Kristen stood, she couldn't tell whether Yvonne could hear us. Kristen lowered her voice. You're making people uncomfortable. There are 2 people in this office. You know what I mean. I usually do. Today I don't. She picked up her coffee and walked out. A few minutes later, Chad came in. He shut the door behind him. What happened with Kristen? She redirected the company's mail. She explained that. She explained it to you before or after I caught it. He rubbed his forehead. Why are you using words like caught? Because she didn't tell me. She was trying to make things easier. For whom? For the office. Yvonne didn't know. Yvonne doesn't like change. I looked through the glass partition. Yvonne was sorting purchase orders into color-coded folders. She had changed accounting systems 4 times and payroll providers twice. She'd learned each one without complaint. That isn't true, I said. Chad sat in the chair across from me. Fine. Kristen should have said something. She should have asked. Would you have agreed? No. That's why she didn't ask. He said it as if that settled the matter. I placed both hands on my desk. Listen carefully. Kristen has no role here. She has no company email. She has no signing authority. She has no right to our records. She's my wife. That doesn't make her an employee. She helps me. Then you need better boundaries. His face reddened. You always do this. Do what? Make me choose. I'm asking you to follow basic company rules. It's never just rules with you. What else is it? He stood. It's your way of reminding me this will never really be mine. I let that sit between us. My son had worked at Foster Precision for years. He owned part of it. I had expected him to lead it someday. But someday and today were not the same thing. It isn't yours, I said. Not yet. He stared at me. Then he opened the door and left. For the rest of that morning, Chad stayed on the floor. He spoke with Harold about production and avoided the office. Kristen stayed until nearly lunch. I saw her whispering to him beside the vending machines. She left without speaking to me again. Around 2, Yvonne brought me a list of the mail we could confirm had been redirected. There were 9 pieces. The Fairmount Trust statement was 1. 4 customer remittance notices were included. There was a letter from our insurance carrier. 2 supplier credit notices had also gone to the box. The last item was a renewal notice for our company's electronic banking access. I read that line twice. Does Kristen have online access? I asked. Not through me. Could Chad give it to her? His login requires his phone. That wasn't my question. Yvonne folded her arms. Yes, he could. Would the system show it? It would show Chad's login. It wouldn't show who held the phone. I gave the list back. Pull the last 90 days of access records. She glanced toward Chad's office. That'll be noticed. By whom? Chad gets an automated report when I request security logs. I considered that. Then don't request them yet. Yvonne waited. You're sure? No. That's why we're waiting. She returned to her desk. At 4:30, I walked the floor before the second shift started. Harold was checking labels on a group of crates near shipping. Each crate carried the Great Lakes name. How many are going Thursday? I asked. 7 truckloads if inspection keeps up. Value? He checked the production packet. A little over 600,000 total. Are the release invoices ready? Chad's office is building them. Have they sent me copies? Harold looked through the packet. Not in here. Make sure I get them before Thursday. He nodded. Problem? I don't know yet. He lowered the packet. I've heard that answer twice this week. You counting? Started Saturday. I almost smiled. Keep the trucks empty until the invoices are signed. That's already the rule. I know. The next morning, Yvonne left a yellow note beneath my coffee mug. It said Chad had scheduled a private meeting with David Lee at Fairmount Trust. The calendar invitation called it an operating line modernization review. Kristen was included. I wasn't. I left the note where Yvonne had placed it. At 9 that morning, Chad walked past my office wearing the navy jacket he used for bank meetings. Kristen arrived 10 minutes later. They left together without mentioning Fairmount Trust. I didn't stop them. If I asked Chad before the meeting, he could tell me it was routine. If I asked Kristen, she'd tell me I was making things personal. I wanted to know what they asked for when I wasn't in the room. Shortly after noon, David Lee called my private office line. Gerald, do you have a minute? I do. I met with Chad this morning. I saw the invitation. There was a brief silence. You weren't copied? No. I assumed you were aware. What did he want? David spoke carefully. He requested that we add him as a co-authorized signer on the operating line. There was my answer. Did he say I'd approved it? He described it as an administrative update. That wasn't my question. No, he didn't say you approved it. Was Kristen in the meeting? Yes. She has no position with the company. I understand. What did she say? She did most of the explaining. I looked through my window toward Chad's empty office. Go on. She said Chad now manages daily operations and that the current signing arrangement creates unnecessary delays. She called it modernization. Did you explain the agreement? I did. What did Chad say? He appeared surprised. By which part? That no signer change can be processed without your written consent. I rubbed the edge of the yellow note with my thumb. Chad had received the loan papers in 2016. He was sitting across from me when David explained the signing rules that first time. Maybe he'd forgotten. Maybe he'd never listened. What happens now? I asked. Nothing. The request can't move forward without you. Did you give them a form? I gave Chad a standard authorization request. It still requires your signature. Did Kristen ask whether there was another way? David paused again. Yes. What did you tell her? That the bank agreement controls the account. Anything else? She asked whether refinancing the line would remove the requirement. I stopped rubbing the note. What did you say? I said refinancing would involve a separate review, and the current line would have to be properly retired. Did she ask for names of other lenders? No. Did Chad? No. David lowered his voice. Gerald, should I be concerned? Not yet. I'm required to document the request. Document it. Do you want a copy? Yes. Put it in the secure bank portal. Don't mail it. I can do that. And David? Yes. If anyone brings you a consent form with my name on it, call me before you process anything. I would do that anyway. I know. I'm asking you to hear me say it. I hear you. After we ended the call, I wrote the time and the details on the legal pad from Janice's desk. Yvonne watched from the doorway. They tried to add Chad, I said. Her mouth tightened. Without you? Without telling me? Can the bank do it? No. That's something. It's something they should already know. She came in and closed the door. Was the mail connected? I think Kristen wanted the bank correspondence where I wouldn't see it. For this? Maybe. Yvonne looked toward the hall. Are you going to confront them now? No. How much do you need before you do? Enough that I don't have to argue about what happened. She nodded, though she didn't look satisfied. At 2, Chad returned to the plant. He'd removed the navy jacket and carried it over one shoulder. He went straight to his office. Kristen didn't come back with him. I gave him 20 minutes. Then I stood in his doorway. How did the bank meeting go? His hand stopped on the computer mouse. Fine. What did you discuss? Account administration. That could mean anything. He clicked something on the screen. We're growing. I wanted to understand our options. What options? He finally looked at me. Why don't you ask David? It sounds like you already did. That told me David's call hadn't remained private for long. He'd probably told Chad that bank policy required notice to the guarantor. I'm asking you, I said. I wanted signing authority. Why? Because I run operations. You already approve purchases and production schedules. I shouldn't need to track you down for every large shipment. You don't have to track me down. I'm here every morning. That isn't the point. It seems to be the exact point. Chad stood and closed the spreadsheet on his monitor. The system was set up 10 years ago. The loan was set up 10 years ago. The company's different now. The balance still belongs to the same bank. You know what I mean. I know you asked for authority over a debt secured by my house. His eyes moved away. Nobody's touching your house. If the company stops paying, the bank does. That isn't going to happen. Then the signature shouldn't inconvenience you. He gave a short laugh with no humor in it. You always have an answer. I've had 10 years to understand the agreement. He sat down again. David gave me the form. I won't sign it, I figured. Did Kristen tell you to request it? His face hardened. It was my meeting. That wasn't my question. She thinks the company should reflect how it actually operates. And how does it actually operate? I make the decisions. You sign the paper. I studied him. He believed that. He wasn't trying to provoke me. In his mind, the morning invoices were the last unnecessary step between his work and a finished order. Those papers leave with the product, I said. I know what an invoice does. Then you know it's more than my name at the bottom. He turned back to his computer. I have work to do. So do I. I left him there. The Great Lakes shipment was due Thursday. 7 trailers were scheduled between 7 and 11 in the morning. Their receiving center had assigned arrival windows. Missing those windows could push unloading into the next day, and the contract allowed them to charge us for delays. Wednesday afternoon, I asked Chad for the release invoices. They're being finalized, he said. I asked for them Monday. The quantities changed. By how much? Inspection rejected part of one batch. When will I have the corrected invoices? Tomorrow morning. What time? He looked at his schedule. Before the trucks. That's too late. It'll be fine. At 5 that evening, I checked with Harold. He was standing by the loading doors, counting wrapped pallets. Did operations give you release packets? I asked. Packing lists, not invoices. Don't load without cleared invoices. I know. Chad says they'll be ready in the morning. Harold looked toward the office. He also moved the first truck to 6:30. Why? Great Lakes asked for an earlier delivery slot. Did anyone tell their driver the paperwork isn't ready? Not that I heard. I walked back to Chad's office. He was gone. His computer monitor was dark. A sticky note on the door said he'd be at the plant by 7. I called him. He answered from his car. "What's up?" "The first truck is coming at 6:30, Harold told me. "You said the invoices would be ready before the trucks." "They will. You won't be here. Kristen's bringing the final quantities from the inspection report." "Why does Kristen have them?" "She was helping me put the packet together." "Send the file to Yvonne now." "I don't have it in front of me." "Then turn around." He was silent for a moment. "Dad, it's handled." The call ended before I could answer. I arrived at 5:15 Thursday morning. The first trailer was already backed against the dock. Harold met me beside the steel desk. "No invoices." "Has Kristen arrived?" "No." "Chad?" "No." The driver came through the side door carrying his clipboard. "You Foster?" "I'm Gerald Foster. They said I'd be loaded by 6. We'll load what we can while the paperwork catches up." Harold shook his head. "Can't load the last pallets. We don't have the final lot numbers." I called Chad. No answer. I called Kristen. She answered after 4 rings. "Gerald, where are the Great Lakes invoices?" "Chad has them." "He says you have the inspection quantities." I emailed them. "To whom?" "To Chad." "When?" "Last night." "Send them to Yvonne." "I'm driving." "Pull over." She let out a breath. "This is why the signing system doesn't work. The signing system isn't holding the file. You know what I mean." "I know a truck is waiting." She ended the call. At 6:20, Chad rushed through the side entrance carrying his laptop bag. "The file didn't sync," he said. Harold stared at him. "What does that mean?" "It means I have to rebuild the release packet. The first driver's been here nearly an hour." "I know, Harold." Chad opened his laptop on the steel desk. Yvonne arrived while he was entering numbers. She put down her purse and took the keyboard from him. "You're using the rejected quantities," she said. "That's the report Kristen sent. It's the old report." He checked his phone. "It says revised. The date is Tuesday." He scrolled through his email. "Where's Wednesdays?" Harold answered. "Inspection left it in your office." Chad looked up. "No, they didn't. I watched Rick put it on your chair." Chad hurried toward the office. The first driver called his dispatcher. A second truck pulled into the yard. Yvonne rebuilt the invoice from the inspection sheets. I checked each lot number against the packing lists. At 7:10, Chad returned holding a folder. It was under my chair. "How did it get there?" Yvonne asked. "I don't know." Kristen arrived at 7:20. She carried another printed report. "This is the revised version," she said. Yvonne compared it with the folder. "No, it isn't." Kristen looked at Chad. "This is what you sent me. I sent you Wednesdays. You sent me Tuesdays." The two of them began arguing beside the dock while Harold's crew waited. I held up my hand. "Stop." They both looked at me. "Yvonne, use the inspection original." Chad, confirm the purchase order quantities. Kristen, step away from the desk. Her face flushed. "I was trying to fix this." "You don't know the system. I know enough." "No, you don't." She folded her arms and moved back. At 8:05, Yvonne printed the first release invoice. It was for $118,000. I checked the customer number, quantities, and payment terms. Then I signed it. Harold took the page and loaded the first truck. The remaining invoices followed one at a time. By 9:30, 4 trailers were loaded. 3 still waited. Then Sandra Pike from Great Lakes called. Chad put her on speaker. "What's your current departure count?" she asked. 4 trucks are moving," he said. "The rest will be out shortly. Our schedule shows the first should have departed before 7. We had a document issue." "What kind of document issue? A release delay?" Sandra's voice sharpened. "We assigned crews around the arrival windows you confirmed. If the final trucks miss today's receiving schedule, we'll have to apply the contract charge." Chad looked at me. I asked, "What time do you need the last truck?" "On our dock by 1:30. That gives us just over 3 hours. It's a 2-hour drive on a good morning." "I know. The final trailer hasn't left your yard." "I know that too." There was a pause. "Gerald?" "Yes." "I didn't realize you were on the call." "I'm standing at shipping." Her tone changed slightly. "Can you get it here? I can release it in 15 minutes. The road decides the rest. We'll hold the receiving crew until 2. After that, I can't protect you from the charge. That's fair." Chad muted the phone. "You know her?" "I've met her." "When?" "During the contract work." He stared at me. "You never told me that. You never asked who helped after your presentation." Kristen stepped between us. "This isn't the time." For once, she was right. I signed the final invoices. Harold split 2 pallets between the last trailers to balance the weight. I called a dispatcher I'd known for years and asked him to keep both drivers moving without breaking any rules. The final truck reached Great Lakes at 1:53. Sandra held the crew. They didn't charge us. After the dock cleared, Chad followed me into my office and shut the door hard. "You embarrassed me. I signed every correct invoice you gave me. You made it look like I couldn't handle the shipment. You couldn't." His hands opened and closed at his sides. "This happened because of your signature rule. This happened because you prepared the wrong documents. If I had authority, I could have fixed it faster. You had the wrong quantities. I could have approved the release and shipped rejected parts." He turned away. Kristen said the bank change would be simple. There it is. He faced me again. "What? You didn't understand the agreement before asking to control it. I understand the company. You understand production. That isn't the whole company." His shoulders dropped a little. For the first time that morning, he looked more tired than angry. "I'm trying to keep up," he said. "With what?" "Everything. The new account, hiring, equipment payments, customers calling me at night. Then every major order stops at your desk." My desk was ready Monday. He looked down. "I thought the bank would approve me, without my consent." Kristen said it was an administrative change. Kristen was wrong. He sat in the chair across from me. "I can't run a company where my father can stop every truck. I didn't stop them." "You could." "Yes." He looked up sharply. I kept my voice level. "That's what happens when my home and pension secure the money paying for the material on those trucks." He said nothing. The anger had gone out of him. What remained was worry. Then Kristen opened the door without knocking. She placed a white folder on my desk. "We need an outside assessment," she said. The cover carried the name Legacy Transition Partners. Below it was a scheduled 2-day visit with Justin Freeman, beginning Monday morning. The subject line read, "Transition Readiness and Leadership Continuity." Chad wouldn't look at me. Kristen tapped the folder. "This way, nobody has to rely on your opinion or ours." I looked at Chad. "Did you hire him?" Chad rubbed both hands over his face. "Kristen found him. That wasn't my question. I agreed to the visit." "Who's paying for it?" Kristen answered. "I am." "Then he doesn't work for Foster Precision. He doesn't need to work for you to observe workflow. He needs permission to enter my plant." She pulled out a chair. "Are you refusing an independent review?" "I haven't read the proposal. It's 4 pages. I can count." I opened the folder. Legacy Transition Partners described itself as a family business advisory firm. The proposal mentioned workflow continuity, leadership transfer, institutional dependence, and operational risk. The price was $12,000. Justin wanted access to management records, employee interviews, customer schedules, and what the proposal called key person decision points. My signature desk was listed as one of those points. "Who told him about the shipment releases?" I asked. Chad looked at Kristen. She said, "It's obvious, not from outside the company. We had a preliminary call." "What else did you tell him?" "The truth." "That could mean anything." She leaned forward. "If you believe you're still essential, an outside consultant should confirm it, and if he doesn't, then maybe you'll listen." I read the proposal again. Justin's visit was scheduled before anyone had asked my permission. His hotel was booked. Employee interview slots had already been placed on the company calendar. Kristen expected me to refuse. Then she could tell Chad I was afraid of an honest review. 2 days, I said. She blinked. "What?" "He gets 2 days. He doesn't copy financial records. He doesn't enter personnel files. He doesn't contact customers. He needs access to do his job. He gets the access I just described. You're controlling the outcome. I'm controlling my property." Chad spoke before she could answer. 2 days is fine." Kristen turned toward him. "We discussed this, and Dad agreed to the visit." She gathered the folder. "Fine." I kept the proposal. Justin Freeman arrived Monday at 7:30. He looked younger than I expected. He wore clean brown work boots that had never been near a machine and a safety vest, still creased from its package. Kristen walked him through the front office. "Gerald, this is Justin." He held out his hand. "I appreciate you making time. I'm usually here." He smiled as if I'd made a joke. "I'd like to begin by observing your normal routine. You missed it." "I'm sorry." "The first shift started at 6:30. Kristen said, Gerald likes to get here very early. Justin wrote something on his tablet. What time do you normally arrive? Before the work needs me. He wrote again. I led him onto the floor. Harold gave him safety glasses and explained the marked walkways. Justin asked whether Gerald's morning floor walk was written into any operating procedure. Harold glanced at me. No. What happens if Gerald doesn't perform it? Somebody else checks the floor. Who? Me. Has Gerald ever forgotten to do it? Harold's expression changed. Forgotten? Missed it unintentionally. I know what forgotten means. Justin kept his voice pleasant. It's just a continuity question. Harold pointed toward the machining area. If Gerald isn't here, I walk it. If I'm not here, the shift lead walks it. Same as always. Does Gerald ever repeat instructions? Everybody repeats instructions in here. It's loud. Justin typed another note. At the shipping desk, he watched me review 2 invoices. Do you check every line? He asked. Yes. Even if someone else already checked them? Yes. Why? Because I'm signing them. Have you found errors? Last Thursday would be a good example. Kristen's mouth tightened. Justin looked between us. I heard there was a delay. There was. Was the signature requirement part of the delay? The wrong quantities were part of the delay. But the trucks couldn't leave until you signed. They couldn't leave until the paperwork was correct. He made another note. For most of the morning, his questions stayed just close enough to normal. Who approved overtime if I was unavailable? How often did I review vendor changes? Had I ever confused one customer order with another? Did employees come to me after Chad had already made a decision? Harold answered less with every question. At lunch, he found me beside the vending machines. That fellow isn't studying workflow, he said. What's he studying? You. I noticed. You want me to throw him out? Not yet. Harold looked through the break room window. Justin was talking with Kristen near Janice's corner. He asked when you stopped running the machines. That's fair. Then he asked whether you still think you do. I put coins into the vending machine. The package of crackers got stuck against the glass. Harold hit the side once. It dropped. Useful assessment, I said. He didn't laugh. That afternoon, Justin asked to interview me alone. We sat in my office. He placed his tablet between us and turned on a small recorder. I record all executive interviews for accuracy. No. He looked surprised. No recording? You can take notes. It helps prevent misunderstandings. So does listening. He turned off the recorder. We spent the first 15 minutes discussing the company's history. Then his questions shifted. How many days a week do you drive? 7, if I need groceries on Sunday. Have you had any recent accidents? No. Do you manage your own medications? Yes. Have family members expressed concern about your memory? Ask the family members. I'm asking how you understand their concern. I understand that Kristen brought assisted living pamphlets into my house. His fingers stopped above the tablet. She did? You didn't know? She mentioned planning resources. What else did she mention? I can't discuss another interview. You're sitting in my office asking about my medicine. He folded his hands. Family business transitions often involve difficult personal subjects. Then ask directly. All right. Do you believe you're the only person capable of protecting this company? No. Do you trust Chad? Yes. Completely? No. Why not? Because complete trust is how people stop checking paperwork. He entered another note. Have you considered reducing your decision-making role? I consider plenty of things. Have you made plans? Yes. What are they? Not your business. He shifted in his chair. Gerald, resistance to succession is common among founders. Calling an answer resistance doesn't make it one. I'm not here to challenge you. That's the only thing you've done all day. He closed the tablet. I think we can stop there. I think we should. On Tuesday, Justin spent most of his time with Chad and Kristen. He interviewed Yvonne after lunch. She came into my office afterward and shut the door. He asked whether you pay your own bills. What did you say? I asked which bills. What else? Whether you've made unusual accounting requests, whether you lose documents, whether I've seen you become confused or angry. Did you? I told him you get angry when people take your mail. I leaned back. He won't use that. He wrote it down. He'll use half of it. Yvonne sat across from me. This isn't about succession. No. What are you gonna do? Finished the visit. Justin left. Tuesday at 4. On Friday morning, a report arrived by email. The title was Transition Readiness Assessment. I printed it in Janice's corner and read all 19 pages. The first half described ordinary problems. Too many decisions passed between family members. Procedures needed better documentation. Chad's authority wasn't clearly separated from mine. Then the wording changed. Justin wrote that my continued involvement represented a key person dependency. He said I demonstrated rigidity around established routines. He noted that I repeated morning inspections already handled by staff. He described my refusal to allow recorded questioning as guarded behavior. Near the end, he recommended a reduced decision-making role while the family evaluated whether personal factors were interfering with an orderly transition. He never called me incompetent. He didn't need to. I called Teresa Jennings. She answered on the second ring. If this is about your will, I'm at lunch. It isn't. Then I'm still at lunch. I need you to read something. Her tone changed. How soon? Today. Teresa's office was in a brick building near the courthouse. Janice and I had known her for more than 30 years. She'd handled our estate documents, Chad's minority ownership transfer, and the paperwork after Janice died. I arrived at 2 with Justin's report. Teresa read it without speaking. When she finished, she returned to the middle and read several sections again. Who hired him? Kristen. Who gave him access? I did, with limits. Why? I wanted to hear the questions. She removed her glasses. Now you've heard them. What do you see? A report written to support a conclusion without stating it. Which conclusion? That your judgment should be supervised. I looked toward her window. People moved along the sidewalk below. A delivery driver was pulling boxes from a van. Can they do that with this? Not by itself. What can they do? They can take it to an attorney. They can claim concern. They could explore a guardianship petition. The words sat badly in the room. For what? Your finances? Your business decisions? Possibly both. I'm not incapacitated. I know. They know. Maybe. That doesn't mean they won't create a record suggesting otherwise. I thought about the pamphlet from the Elder Law Office. Teresa saw the connection before I said it. Has Kristen raised assisted living? Yes. Driving? She moved my keys. Mail? She redirected it. Teresa put the report into a folder. You need an independent capacity evaluation. They haven't filed anything. That's why you do it now. I called my physician from her conference room. The office gave me an appointment the next morning. The evaluation lasted nearly 2 hours. Dr. Porter reviewed my medications and medical history. She asked about the date, the company, my house, and how I manage bills. She gave me a page covered in numbers and asked me to find a pattern. She read a list of words, then returned to them later. We discussed the Fairmount Trust loan. What happens if the company misses payments? She asked. The bank can pursue the collateral I pledged. What collateral? My home and pension. Who can change the signer? No one without my written consent while the agreement remains active. She asked me to explain the delayed Great Lakes shipment. I did. At the end, she said, I don't see evidence of cognitive impairment. I didn't think you would. I'll put that in writing. Please be specific. She was. Her report stated that I understood my property, finances, business responsibilities, and the consequences of my decisions. It also stated I was capable of managing them independently. I took the original to Teresa. A week later, she called me. Someone spoke with an attorney about filing against you. Who? The attorney wouldn't identify the prospective client. She didn't need to. How did you hear? She contacted me because I'm listed on your estate documents. She asked whether you'd consider voluntary financial supervision. What did you tell her? That you completed an independent evaluation days ago. What happened? She asked for a copy. I gave her the physician's conclusion with your authorization. She said she didn't expect the matter to proceed. Justin's report? Not enough against current medical documentation. I looked through my office window. Kristen was standing beside Chad's desk, smiling at something on his screen. Don't tell them I prepared for it, I said. I haven't. Keep it that way. That afternoon, Yvonne came into Janice's corner carrying 3 remittance notices. She locked the door behind her. I found the Great Lakes payments. Were they in the post office box? No. Great Lakes sent duplicates. She laid the notices across the roll-top desk. Each showed a paid Foster Precision invoice. None of the payments appeared in our operating account. I checked the routing instructions printed at the bottom. The bank account wasn't ours. The payee wasn't Foster Precision Fabrication. It read, Foster Advanced Manufacturing, LLC. I looked at Yvonne. What is this? I was hoping you knew. I checked the first notice again. Great Lakes had paid $86,000 against 2 invoices. The notice showed the date, invoice numbers, and receiving account. The second payment was for $43,000. The third was just over $31,000. All 3 had gone to the same account. How far back did you check? I asked. 3 months? Only Great Lakes? No. Yvonne opened another folder. 2 smaller customers had received updated payment instructions. Their notices also named Foster Advanced Manufacturing. How much altogether? I can confirm $207,000. I sat down at the roll-top desk. That was more than missing mail. It was more than Kristen trying to increase Chad's authority. Someone had redirected company revenue. Are these invoices still open in our system? I asked. No. Who closed them? That's the problem. Yvonne pointed to a code beside each entry. The invoices had been marked paid through a manual adjustment. The user identification belonged to Chad. Did Chad enter these? I don't know. It's his login. Yes. Could Kristen use it? If he left the system open. He does. Then either of them could have made the adjustment. I looked at the notices. Does Chad know you requested these? No. Keep it that way. Yvonne lowered her voice. You think he did this? I don't know. Gerald, this is company money. I know what it is. We have to tell someone. We're telling Teresa. I called her from the locked office. She told us not to alter any records. She wanted the remittance notices scanned, copied, and placed in separate envelopes. One copy would stay with Yvonne. One would go to Teresa. Do not search Kristen's personal devices, Teresa said. I wasn't planning to. Do not access a bank account that isn't yours. I don't have the password. And don't ask Chad about the adjustments yet. That was my decision too. Good. I like when clients make my job easier. She came to the plant after 6. Harold had already sent the second shift home from the office side. He stayed near the floor entrance while Teresa reviewed the records in Janice's corner. She compared the account numbers across all 5 customers. Same receiving bank, she said. Can you identify it? Yes. That's the easy part. What's the hard part? Learning who controls the account without alerting them. The post office form was still inside Janice's payroll ledger. I took it out and placed it beside the remittance notices. Teresa read the destination. Box 1172. That's where Kristen sent our mail. She pointed to the address on one customer's payment instruction. It was the same box. Now we have a connection, she said, to Kristen, to an address she controlled. We still need the entity record. She opened her laptop and searched Pennsylvania's public business filings. Foster Advanced Manufacturing, LLC had been formed early that year. The organizer's name appeared on the first page. Kristen Foster. Yvonne sat back. She formed it herself. Teresa kept reading. The mailing address was Box 1172. The registered office was a commercial service in Harrisburg. Chad's name appeared nowhere, neither did mine. Neither did Foster Precision Fabrication. Can she use our name like that? Yvonne asked. She can form an entity with a similar name, Teresa said. That doesn't give her a right to our receivables. What does give her that right? Nothing I've seen, I asked. Can we get the banking records? Not by calling and asking nicely. What can we do? First, you dispute the payment changes with the customers. They can request transaction traces from their banks. We'll also preserve the instructions they received. Will that alert Kristen? Possibly. I don't want that yet. Teresa closed the laptop. Then we start with public records and company-owned systems. We do it quietly. Yvonne pointed to Chad's login code. What about this? Preserve it. Don't accuse him. Teresa looked at me. Can you keep operating without the diverted money? For now. How long? Several months, depending on material costs. Then we have room to be careful. I drove home after 8. The kitchen light was still on from the timer. I warmed a bowl of soup and left it untouched on the table. Janice had bought something from Kristen's boutique before it closed. It was a white ceramic pitcher with a blue rim. Janice kept wooden spoons in it beside the stove. I picked it up and turned it over. A small label on the bottom carried the boutique's name. Cross Home and Hearth. When Kristen opened the store, She told us it was part of a franchise. It sold candles, framed sayings, table linens, and furniture designed to look older than it was. The place lasted less than 2 years. In 2023, Kristen told us the franchising company had changed its terms. She said she'd chosen to close rather than lose more money. Chad said they were disappointed, but fine. Janice wasn't there to hear it. She'd been gone 2 years by then. I'd asked Chad once whether they needed help. He said, "We handled it." I believed him. The next morning, Teresa called before I left the house. I found litigation connected to the boutique. What kind? Franchise and vendor claims. Against the store? Against Kristen personally. I set my coffee mug on the counter. How much? I'm still adding. Give me what you have. Approximately $180,000. I didn't answer. Teresa continued. Kristen signed personal guarantees for the franchise fees, inventory purchases, and part of the commercial lease. When the store failed, the creditors pursued her. Did Chad sign? Not on the documents I found. Does his name appear anywhere? Only as her spouse on an address verification. He isn't listed as a borrower or guarantor. Could he still know? Of course. But the records don't show it. No? I looked at the ceramic pitcher. She said the franchise changed its terms. That may have been part of it. The filings say she was already behind on required purchases and royalties. Was there a judgment? 2. One claim settled. Another is under a payment agreement. Is she making payments? That's what I'm trying to determine. Can you connect Foster Advance to the creditors? Not yet. I carried the pitcher to the table and sat down. The amount diverted is already higher than the debt. Some funds may still be in the account. Some may cover interest, legal costs, or other obligations we haven't found. Keep looking, I will. I left the pitcher on the table when I went to work. That morning, Kristen arrived carrying breakfast sandwiches. She placed one on Chad's desk, one on Yvonne's, and one on mine. Peace offering, she said. For what? She smiled. For all the tension lately. I left the sandwich wrapped. She leaned against my doorframe. Did you read Justin's report? I did. What did you think? He wrote what you hired him to write. That's unfair. Did you ask him to evaluate my memory? I asked him to evaluate transition risks. Did you speak with an attorney after he finished? Her smile weakened. Why would you ask that? Because the report wasn't about workflow. She crossed her arms. You're becoming suspicious of everyone. Not everyone. What does that mean? It means what I said. She glanced at the unopened sandwich. You should eat something. I had breakfast. Did you? Yes. She watched me a moment longer. Then she said, Chad and I are only trying to protect what you built. I looked at the woman standing in my doorway. At that moment, she still believed I knew nothing about Foster Advanced Manufacturing. I appreciate the concern, I said. She seemed relieved. After she left, I put the sandwich in the trash. Yvonne appeared 5 minutes later. She asked me whether the duplicate remittances came in. What did you tell her? That I was still waiting. Good. She knows they're missing. She knows she took the originals. Yvonne sat down. I checked the accounting access more closely. I thought we were waiting on the security logs. I didn't request them. I checked the adjustment timestamps already stored on each invoice. What did you find? The entries were made late at night. How late? Between 11 and 1? From where? The system doesn't show location on that screen. Was Chad at the plant? Not according to the door log. Could he work from home? Yes. So, could Kristen? Yes. I wrote the dates on my pad. 3 fell on weeknights. 1 was a Sunday. The last adjustment happened during the supplier dinner, where Chad told everyone he'd won Great Lakes by himself. I remembered Kristen leaving the table twice to take calls. Can we see which device connected? I asked. Only through the security report. That alerts Chad. It sends him an email. Can the system administrator pull it without using your account? Probably. Who handles that? An outside service. Would they contact Chad? They're supposed to contact the account administrator. Who is Chad? Yes. I put down my pen. Then we don't do it yet. Yvonne looked frustrated. We keep stopping one step before an answer. We keep stopping one step before warning them. She stood. I hope that distinction stays useful. So do I. 2 days later, Great Lakes sent a copy of the email that changed their payment instructions. Sandra addressed it directly to me. Her message said, Gerald, our accounting department found this during reconciliation. Please confirm whether it came from your office. The attached email had been sent from a Foster Precision address used for general customer billing. It told Great Lakes that payments should be directed to Foster Advanced Manufacturing because of an internal banking update. The message carried Chad's typed name at the bottom. It wasn't his normal signature. Chad's actual email signature included his title, direct number, and our original hand-painted logo. This one only said, Chad Foster, Operations. The reply address went to Kristen's post office box. I printed it and drove to Teresa's office. She placed it beside the formation record. This helps, she said. It still doesn't tell us who sent it. No, it tells us the sender wanted the customer to believe it was Chad. Would Chad miss his own title? Maybe. He calls himself Vice President of Operations every chance he gets. Teresa gave me a brief look. That's not legal proof. I know, it is useful. She opened a second folder. I found the connection to the debt. Inside was a public financing statement filed after Kristen settled one of the boutique claims. The creditor had taken a secured interest in certain accounts and proceeds controlled by Kristen. A later amendment listed an additional deposit account. The bank and partial account number matched the Foster advance payment instructions. I read the page twice. So this account is tied to her settlement. Yes, company payments go in, her creditor takes money out. That appears to be the arrangement. How much? The scheduled withdrawals vary. The remaining balance across the documented claims is close to $180,000. Does Chad appear on this? No. Anywhere? No. Teresa turned to another page. The first payment from Foster Advanced was made days after the first customer received new instructions. The whole shape of it became clear. Kristen hadn't redirected the mail to organize anything. She needed the remittance notices hidden. She hadn't pushed for Chad's signing authority because he deserved recognition. She needed someone she could influence inside the bank arrangement. Justin's report wasn't about helping me retire. If my judgment could be challenged, my control could be pushed aside. The keys, the pamphlets, the questions about my memory, and the private meeting with Fairmount Trust all served the same purpose. Kristen needed me treated as an obstacle before I discovered she was using the company to pay the debts she'd hidden for 3 years. Teresa watched me finish reading. You can confront her now, she said. What happens if I do? She denies it. She may destroy whatever we haven't found. She may also convince Chad you're attacking her over a failed business. Can we freeze the account? Not without moving openly? Can the customer stop future payments? Yes. That alerts her too. Yes. I closed the folder. What would you do? I'd secure your company first. And Chad? You have to decide whether he's part of this. I thought about him sitting across from David, surprised that my consent was required. I thought about the wrong inspection report, his anger on the dock, and the way he'd said Kristen told him the bank change was simple. If I tell Chad and he knows, he warns her, I said. And if he doesn't, he confronts her. Then he warns her without meaning to. Teresa nodded. So, we tell neither of them. Not yet. I authorized her to preserve the formation records, creditor filings, and customer emails. Yvonne would continue monitoring the receivables without changing the visible process. Before I left, Teresa handed me the folder. Gerald, this is no longer a family disagreement. I know. What are you waiting for? I placed the folder under my arm. I want to know what she thinks happens after I'm gone. Teresa didn't answer right away. She put both hands on the folder. You're waiting for her to make the next move. I'm waiting to see where she believes the authority comes from. We already know part of that. She tried to add Chad at the bank, and when that failed, she hired Justin, so she may try a different legal route. That route failed too. She doesn't know you prepared for it. No. Teresa leaned back. Then we need to confirm what you control before she tests something else. I know what I control. You know what you signed 10 years ago. I want current confirmation that nothing has been amended, renewed, or interpreted differently. It hasn't. Good. We'll prove it. That evening, I went into the closet beside my bedroom. The safe deposit box was a heavy fire-resistant case with a combination lock. Janice bought it after a water leak ruined our first set of insurance papers. She kept deeds, titles, and original contracts inside separate envelopes. Her handwriting was on everyone. The envelope for Fairmount Trust said, $2,400,000 line. Gerald's original guarantee. Do not remove without logging. Janice had taped a small index card to the back. The card showed one entry from 2016, removed for closing review, returned same day. Nobody had touched it since. I opened the envelope on the bed. The personal guarantee was there. So was the original bank signature card, the loan agreement, and a separate acknowledgement concerning shipment releases. My signature appeared 9 times. Janice's initials appeared beside the page numbers. She hadn't been required to initial them. She did it because she wanted us both to know every page had been reviewed. I set the documents in order. The guarantee pledged my house and pension. The loan agreement named the company as borrower. The signature card named me as sole authorized guarantor signer. The shipment acknowledgement stated that invoices above $15,000 needed my countersignature before the bank would clear the related release. I already knew that language. The section Teresa wanted was deeper in the loan agreement. It covered changes, collateral, and termination. I read it twice at the kitchen table. Then I put every page back in its envelope. The next morning, I carried the originals into Teresa's office. She cleared her conference table and arranged the documents by date. "You were right," she said. "I've been right before. Try not to let it spoil you." She placed the signature card on top. This designation never changed. Chad's ownership interest doesn't affect it. He thinks being vice president of operations should. His title lets him operate within the authority the company gave him. It doesn't let him rewrite a bank agreement you personally guaranteed. What happens if they find another lender? That depends on what they try. Suppose another bank agrees to refinance the Fairmount line. The current agreement requires Fairmount's approval for that transaction. It also requires your written consent, because the refinance would release or replace your guarantee and alter the pledge collateral. Can Chad consent as an owner? No. Can Kristen? Teresa gave me a look. Kristen can't consent to changing the office coffee. Suppose they present a payoff. A proper payoff still requires closing documents. Fairmount won't release its lien or your guarantee until every condition is met, including my signature. Yes. She turned several pages. This section matters more now. It defined the collateral supporting the line. Company receivables were included. Money owed to Foster Precision belonged in approved company accounts tied to the lending arrangement. What happens when receivables are diverted? I asked. It's an event of default. Even if the company keeps making payments? Yes. The bank lent against those receivables. Moving them to another entity hides collateral from the lender. What can Fairmount do? Freeze further borrowing. Demand corrective action. Accelerate the loan if the problem isn't cured. Pursue collateral if necessary. My house. Eventually, yes. I looked at the page. Kristen hadn't only taken company money to cover her debt, she'd moved the bank's collateral while my property remained pledged behind it. Can we use this agreement to stop her account? I asked. The bank can act on its rights. You need David to verify the agreement remains active and put the diversion into their review process. That alerts Chad. Not necessarily at first. The bank can conduct an internal collateral review. What does David need? The customer notices, the false payment instructions, the entity record, your statement as majority owner and guarantor. I gathered the documents. Then I'll give him those, not by email. I know. And Gerald, I stopped. Once the bank confirms a default, you won't control every consequence. I understand. If Fairmount freezes the line, payroll and materials could be affected. How long can they review before acting? That's David's question. I called him from Teresa's conference room. I need a private meeting, I said. When? Today. I can be available after 3. Not at the plant. My office? Somewhere Chad won't walk in. David suggested a small Fairmount branch north of the city. He could reserve its back conference room after the branch closed. At 4:15, Teresa and I entered through a side door. David was waiting with the current loan file. He checked the originals against the bank's electronic records. Page by page, the terms matched. No amendments, he said. Any pending requests besides Chad's signer form? Teresa asked. Nothing processed? Anything submitted? David looked at me. There was a request for a current payoff figure. From whom? Chad. When? Yesterday. Did he say why? He selected business planning on the request. Teresa asked, did you send it? It's being prepared. Does the payoff request authorize a release? No, it's only a calculation. Would a new lender see Gerald's consent requirement? It appears in the collateral and guarantee conditions. Assuming they receive the complete file, she said. David nodded. They should. I placed the Great Lakes notices on the table. Now look at these. He read the payment instructions first. Then he compared the customer invoices with our approved deposit accounts. His expression became more serious. This account isn't part of the Fairmount relationship. I know. Who owns Foster Advanced Manufacturing? Kristen formed it. David looked up. Chad's wife? Yes. Does she work for the company? No. He read the formation record. How much was diverted? We can document more than $200,000, Teresa said. There may be additional payments. David turned to me. Does Chad know? I don't know. Did he authorize the payment change? His name was used. The signature format was wrong. David examined the email from Great Lakes. I need copies of all of this. You can have them, I said. I'll have to notify our credit risk department. Will they notify the company? You are the company's majority owner and guarantor. Notification to you satisfies the initial review requirement. If we take action against the line, formal notice goes to the registered officers. That includes Chad. Yes. I don't want action taken before you know the full scope. David considered that. We can begin with a collateral verification. That doesn't freeze the line by itself. Can you monitor the approved accounts? We already do. Can you tell if more customer payments disappear? Not unless we know what customers owe you. Yvonne had prepared a current receivables schedule. I handed it to him. This is through yesterday. David compared the schedule with the deposits. There are several gaps. Which ones? He marked 3 lines. One was a Great Lakes invoice Yvonne already knew about. The other 2 belonged to customers whose duplicate notices hadn't arrived. Together, those invoices totaled another $74,000. We need payment traces, he said. I'll have Yvonne request them. Quietly, yes. David closed the loan file. I'm recording this as a possible diversion of pledged receivables. What does that give us? I asked. It preserves the bank's rights from today forward. If the diversion is confirmed, any attempt to alter, refinance, or terminate this line will require resolution of the default. And my consent requirement? Unchanged. Say it plainly. David looked directly at me. No one can add a signer, release your guarantee, move the pledge collateral, or complete a refinance of this facility without the approvals in the agreement. Your written consent is one of them. Can an incapacity claim substitute for my signature, not based on a consultant's report? We'd require a court order and our legal department's review. Teresa said, There is no court order. There won't be one. David nodded. Then your signature remains required. I asked him to prepare a written status confirmation. It would state that the line remained active, my guarantee remained in force, and no signer change had been approved. He agreed to keep it in the secure portal. Before we left, he said, Gerald, I have to ask something. Go ahead. Why haven't you removed Chad's operational access? Because I don't know whether he took the money. His credentials were used. His wife has access to him that she doesn't have to me. That isn't an answer. It's the answer I have. Teresa and I walked into the parking lot. The branch lights went dark behind us. What if David decides he can't wait? I asked. He'll call. And if he freezes the line, we deal with it. The crew shouldn't pay for this. No. Neither should our customers. No. She opened her car door. You have the lever now, Gerald. Don't confuse having it with needing to pull it immediately. I don't. What do you need? A place where Kristen can explain each piece separately. Teresa understood. The more people involved, the harder the damage is to control. She involved the customers when she took their payments. That doesn't mean you should stage a spectacle. I'm not planning one. That was true. I didn't know what setting Kristen would choose. I only knew she was asking for payoff figures and clearing paths around my signature. At home, I returned the originals to the safe deposit box. I placed copies in a separate envelope for Teresa. David had the bank's originals and the evidence supporting his review. 3 sets, 3 locations. Janice would have approved of that. I took a bottle of bourbon from the cabinet above the refrigerator. It had been there since Christmas. I poured 1 glass. Then I sat at the kitchen table with the company payoff request in front of me. Chad's name appeared at the top. The request didn't identify another lender, but it asked Fairmount to calculate principal, interest, closing costs, and lien release fees through the end of the next month. That wasn't curiosity. Somebody had chosen a date. I drank the bourbon slowly and rinsed the glass. The following morning, Yvonne handed me a sealed envelope. David sent this through the branch courier. Inside was the written confirmation. The line remained active. It matured in 2031. I remained the sole authorized guarantor signer. The bank had also opened a collateral review concerning diverted receivables. At the bottom, David had added one sentence: no release, refinance, assignment, or authorized signer change will be recognized without Gerald Foster's written consent. I read it once and placed it in Janice's ledger. Then I signed the morning invoices and sent 4 trucks out. Nothing about the ritual looked different. That afternoon, Chad asked everyone in management to remain after the first shift. He called it a family business meeting. Kristen had prepared the presentation. The meeting began at 4. Harold stood near the conference room door with his arms folded. Yvonne brought a notepad but didn't open it. 2 department supervisors sat along the wall. Kristen connected her laptop to the screen. The first slide showed our hand-painted sign beside a computer-generated logo. The new logo read, Foster Advanced Manufacturing. Chad stood beside the screen. We've reached a point where the company's image needs to match its capabilities, he said. Precision fabrication sounds like a small job shop. Harold looked at me. I said nothing. Kristen changed the slide. The next page showed photographs of our newest machining centers, the warehouse edition, and the Great Lakes production line. We aren't the same company Gerald and Janice started in 1984, she said. That history matters, but it can't define the future. Yvonne's pen touched the paper. She still didn't write. Chad continued. We're planning a full rebrand, new signage, updated customer materials, and a public relaunch here at the plant. When? I asked. 3 weeks, Kristen said. That's already scheduled? The chamber confirmed this morning. Who invited them? I did. Harold shifted against the wall. Are we changing the legal company name? Yvonne asked. Kristen smiled. That will happen as part of the financial transition. What financial transition? Chad changed the slide. A photograph of a glass office building appeared beside the words, Modern Capital Partnership. We're refinancing the Fairmount line, he said. With whom? I asked. Keystone Commercial Finance. I'd heard of them. They funded equipment and warehouse projects for medium-sized businesses. They weren't a bank we'd ever used. Who contacted Keystone? Kristen found them, Chad said. Kristen added, They understand growth companies. Did you tell them Fairmount holds our receivables? They received a financial package. Who prepared it? Chad and I did. Yvonne finally wrote something. I asked, Did that package include the personal guarantee? Chad's expression tightened. The new facility won't require the same structure. That wasn't my question. Kristen stepped forward. The Fairmount line will be paid off at closing. Once it's retired, the old restrictions disappear. Who told you that? Our closing representative. Did he review the Fairmount agreement? He reviewed the payoff information. That isn't the agreement. Chad moved between us. Dad, we're not doing this again. Doing what? Turning every decision into a test. You're proposing to refinance $2,400,000. We're replacing an outdated credit line, one secured by my house. That's why we're replacing it. Who guarantees the new one? The company, Kristen said. Which company? She looked at the logo. The company we're becoming. Yvonne's eyes moved toward me. Kristen changed the slide before anyone could ask another question. The relaunch program included a plant tour, remarks from Chad, a signing ceremony with Keystone, and the unveiling of the new sign. My name appeared near the bottom. Gerald Foster, Founder Emeritus. I read it once. What is Founder Emeritus? Kristen answered. It honors your contribution without creating confusion about current leadership. I'm the majority owner. We know that. The program doesn't. It's a ceremonial title. I already have a title. Chad exhaled. This is exactly why we needed Justin. Harold pushed away from the wall. What does a consultant have to do with who owns the place? Chad turned toward him. This is a management meeting, Harold. I manage your floor. You know what I mean. Yes, Harold said. I'm starting to. I raised one hand. Harold stopped. I looked at Chad. Has Keystone approved the refinance? They issued a commitment. Conditional on what? Normal closing requirements. My consent? Kristen closed the presentation. The Fairmount payoff removes the need for it. She said that with complete confidence. I could have taken David's letter from Janice's ledger. I could have placed the loan agreement on the conference table and ended the discussion there. Instead, I asked, who's attending the relaunch? Employees, major customers, suppliers, the chamber, and local press, she said. Great Lakes? We're inviting them. Good. Kristen appeared surprised. You support that? I think they should see it. The meeting ended 10 minutes later. Harold followed me into Janice's corner. You're letting them do this? I'm letting them send invitations. That's not what I asked. I know. He looked toward the conference room. Kristen was showing one supervisor the new logo. They put Janice's name on one slide, he said. I saw. Then they called it History. I saw that too. Harold lowered his voice. Tell me what you need. Keep production normal. That's it? For now. He left without looking convinced. Yvonne stayed behind. She placed her notepad on the roll-top desk. The only sentence she'd written was, which company? Did you notice she never answered me? She asked. Yes. Does Keystone think Foster Advanced already exists? I don't know. What if their financial package includes the diverted revenue? That may be why the numbers looked healthy. Yvonne stared at the new logo still glowing through the conference room window. She's rebranding us with the name on that account. Yes. And Chad doesn't know. Not yet. He just presented it. He thinks it's a name Kristen invented for the relaunch. She did invent it, months before she told him. Yvonne closed the notepad. How long are you going to let this go? Until she asks someone to sign. 2 mornings later, I arrived at the plant and found a moving truck beside the office entrance. A man in a gray sweatshirt was carrying boxes out of Janice's corner. Another was wrapping the roll-top desk in padded blankets. I stopped in the doorway. What are you doing? The first mover lowered the box. We were told to clear this room. By whom? He checked his work order. Kristen Foster. She doesn't own anything in this room. The second man stopped wrapping the desk. Chad came down the hall. Dad, I was going to call you. You knew about this? We need the space for the relaunch. You need Janice's desk moved for a party? It's becoming a customer conference area. When was that decided? Yesterday. By whom? He looked toward the movers. Can you give us a minute? They stepped into the hall. I walked to the desk. The drawers had been emptied into cardboard boxes. Janice's pens, payroll stamps, and old adding machine rolls were mixed together. Her handwritten ledger was gone. Where's the ledger? Chad looked at the labels. I don't know. You moved the desk without knowing where its contents went? Kristen packed it. I opened 3 boxes before finding the ledger beneath a bundle of extension cords. I removed it and held it against my side. This doesn't leave my office. Fine. Where's the desk going? Storage? Whose storage? The company unit near the warehouse. I looked at the scratches already made in one side. Your mother kept this desk for 33 years. I know. Do you? His face tightened. We're not throwing it away. You cleared it without telling me. We're trying to get the plant ready. For a refinancing I haven't approved. He lowered his voice. You don't have to approve it. Kristen told you that. Keystone told us. Who at Keystone? Our closing representative. Did you speak to him yourself? Yes. Did you tell him I'm the majority owner? He has the ownership records. Did you tell him I haven't consented? Chad rubbed the back of his neck. He said the payoff resolves the Fairmount restrictions. That isn't an answer. Dad, I'm tired of asking permission to run the company I grew. The words came out louder than he intended. The movers heard them. So did Harold, who had stopped at the end of the hall. I looked at Chad. You grew it. Yes. Without me? I didn't say that. You came close. He glanced toward Harold. This is a private conversation. It stopped being private when you emptied your mother's desk into boxes. Chad looked at the floor. For a second, shame crossed his face. Then Kristen entered through the front door. Why did the movers stop? I turned toward her. Where's the plaque? What plaque? The brass plaque under the entrance sign. She didn't answer. I walked outside. 2 empty screw holes sat beneath the hand-painted sign. A faint, clean rectangle showed where the brass had protected the paint. I went back inside. Where is it? Kristen pointed toward one of the boxes. It was removed for the new installation. I opened the box. The plaque was wrapped in brown packing paper beneath a stack of promotional banners. I unwrapped it. One corner was bent. The inscription was still readable, Janice Foster. She kept the books and the faith. Chad stood behind me. We can put it somewhere inside. It belongs under the sign. The old sign is coming down. I looked at him. He didn't hold my eyes. I carried the plaque and ledger to my office. Then I let the movers finish wrapping the desk. That was the moment I stopped hoping Kristen might retreat on her own. I called Teresa from my private line. The relaunch is in 3 weeks. Public, employees, customers, press, and Keystone. Are they closing the refinance there? They plan to. Have you been asked to sign anything? No. Then Kristen believes she doesn't need you. She also removed Janice's plaque. Teresa was quiet. What do you want me to do? Attend. As your attorney, as Janice's friend. I can be both. I called David next. Do you remember asking whether you should be concerned? Yes. The answer is now. I told him about the relaunch and Keystone's planned refinancing. Did Keystone request a formal payoff package? He asked. Chad did. We haven't received a lender request. Come to the event. What reason should I give? Closing out old paperwork. That's all? That's all they need to hear. David agreed. Yvonne contacted Sandra at Great Lakes. She didn't mention the diverted payments. She said the relaunch included an apology for the shipment delay and that Gerald hoped Sandra could attend. Sandra accepted. During the following weeks, Kristen took over the front office. She approved banners, catering trays, name badges, and a temporary stage near the loading dock. She had blue cloth hung over the new exterior sign. The invitations called Chad, the second-generation president. They called me founder, nothing more. On the morning of the event, I signed 6 release invoices at the steel desk. Then I placed the original guarantee, signature card, and David's confirmation inside a leather document case. Teresa arrived just before the guests. David came separately and stood near the back. Sandra joined 2 Great Lakes managers beside the first row. Keystone sent a closing representative named Michael Grant. He arranged the refinancing papers on a table and marked the signature pages with colored tabs. Kristen saw David. She walked over and shook his hand. I'm glad Fairmount could be here for the transition. David said, Gerald invited me. Her eyes moved briefly toward me. Then the reporter asked for a photograph, and Kristen turned away. By 4, the folding chairs were full. The empty screw holes beneath the old sign were still visible above the entrance. Chad stepped to the microphone. He described the Great Lakes contract, the warehouse expansion, and the production growth. He said his leadership had moved the company beyond the limitations of its founding generation. Then he looked at me and said, the company had outgrown the way I ran it. Kristen touched his elbow and guided him toward the signing table. She told me Chad had the paperwork handled. Michael opened the first document and handed my son a pen. I waited until the pen touched the signature line. Chad signed his name. Michael moved the document aside and opened the next one. Before we continue, I said, I have a question. Kristen stepped toward me. Gerald, we can answer questions after the ceremony. This one belongs before the signatures. Michael set down the second document. I asked him, have you received a written release from Fairmount Trust? We have a payoff statement in progress. That isn't a release. Kristen smiled toward the reporter. This is a technical closing matter. David walked forward from the back row. No, he said. It's a condition of the existing loan. The room quieted. Kristen stared at him. I thought you were here to close out Fairmount's paperwork. I am here because Gerald asked me to confirm its status. I opened my document case and handed David the original guarantee. He placed it on the signing table beside Keystone's papers. The Fairmount Trust line remains active, he said. It matures in 2031. Gerald Foster remains its sole authorized guarantor signer. Michael leaned over the document. Our understanding was that the payoff removed that requirement. A completed and approved payoff might, David said. You don't have one. Chad put down the pen. What approval is missing? Your father's written consent. Kristen moved beside him. David, you told us Fairmount could be paid off. I said a payoff could be requested. I didn't say the collateral could be transferred without review. What review? David looked at me. I nodded. The bank has identified diverted receivables pledged under the current loan, he said. That diversion is an event of default. Michael closed the folder in front of him. Diverted where? David answered. Foster Advanced Manufacturing LLC. Chad looked from David to Kristen. What LLC? She reached for his arm. It's the entity for the rebrand. When did you form it? It was preparation, Chad. Teresa walked to the table and placed the formation record beside the guarantee. Kristen formed it months ago, she said. Before this relaunch was discussed with Gerald, before it was discussed with you. Chad read the first page. His face lost its color. You open this? I was getting things ready. Yvonne stood from the front row. Customer payments were already going into it. Kristen turned on her. You had no right to review my account. It wasn't your money, Yvonne said. Sandra stepped closer. Great Lakes sent more than $100,000 to that account after receiving revised instructions under Chad's name. Chad looked at her. I never sent revised instructions. I know that now, Sandra said. The reporter's recorder remained on the chair beside her. She didn't need to hold it. Everyone could hear. Kristen tried to gather the papers. Teresa placed one hand on them. Leave those. This is private financial information. It stopped being private when you use company receivables. Chad stared at the formation record. Why did you need another account? Kristen looked around the room. This is not the place. You picked the place, I said. She faced me. You planned this? No. You planned all of it. I brought the documents, Chad asked again. Why did you need the account? Teresa answered, because Kristen wouldn't. Her boutique left approximately $180,000 in personally guaranteed debt. The Foster Advanced account was tied to payments on that debt. Chad shook his head. No. We settled the store. Kristen spoke quietly. I was handling it. You told me it was finished. I didn't want you worrying. So you took money from Dad's company? Our company, she said. The money was coming back, Sandra said. It was our payment to Foster Precision. Kristen's voice rose. Gerald wouldn't let Chad control anything. I had to create room for him. Chad stepped away from her. Don't put this on me. I did this for us. You used my name. Michael gathered Keystone's documents. Keystone is withdrawing from this transaction, effective immediately. Kristen blocked his side of the table. You issued a commitment based on financial disclosures that didn't include an existing collateral default, disputed receivables, or a required owner consent. It can be corrected. Not today. He placed the papers inside his case. The blue cloth over the new sign moved in the air from the loading doors. Nobody unveiled it. Harold came through the side entrance carrying 3 release invoices. Those demonstration trucks are loaded, he said. Whose signature am I using? Chad looked at the lines where he'd signed each one. Then he looked at me. Dad's. I took the invoices. Each was above $15,000. I checked the quantities and signed beneath Chad's name. Harold carried them back to the dock. A minute later, the first truck pulled away. That was the whole mechanism. No speech could change it. No new logo could replace it. Nothing shipped until I countersigned. Chad returned to the microphone. His hands were shaking, so he left them at his sides. I told people I grew this company, he said. I made it sound like my father was standing in my way. He looked toward the loading doors. I didn't even understand why those trucks needed his signature. I should have. Then he stepped away. I told Kristen to leave the plant. She said I couldn't humiliate her in public and call it justice. I didn't invite your creditors, I said. I invited the people whose money you moved. Harold walked her to the front entrance. She left without Chad. The bank handled the recovery from there. Fairmount restricted new borrowing, while Yvonne and David reconciled every missing payment. Most of the diverted funds were traced. Some remained in the Foster Advanced account. Some had already gone to Kristen's boutique creditors. Fairmount pursued the diverted money through its own civil process. Kristen remained personally responsible for the debts she'd guaranteed when her store failed. There were no handcuffs at the plant. No one dragged her from her home. There were lawyers, account freezes, repayment demands, and bills she could no longer hide. Chad and Kristen separated several weeks later. He moved into a small apartment across town. I didn't ask for details. He didn't offer them. I removed his access to banking and customer payment records. He remained vice president of operations because he still knew production. But every financial decision came through Yvonne and me. The first honest conversation between us happened on a Saturday. I found Chad outside the plant with a ladder. He had straightened Janice's brass plaque. One corner still showed a faint crease, but he'd polished the surface and replaced the bent screws. He mounted it beneath the old sign. Nobody had asked him. When he climbed down, he said, "I'm sorry." I waited. He didn't add an excuse. "I like people thinking I'd done it alone," he said. "Kristen kept telling me you were holding me back. I let that become easier to believe than the truth. You helped build the growth." "I know. You didn't build the foundation." "I know that now." I looked at the plaque. Knowing it now doesn't fix everything. I know that too. That was enough for one Saturday. The roll-top desk went back into Janice's corner. Chad helped Harold carry it in. Yvonne put the payroll ledger in its second drawer, exactly where Janice had kept it. Teresa and I spent the next 2 months restructuring the company. My majority interest went into a family trust. Chad kept his minority interest, but no single family member could approve major borrowing, refinancing, collateral changes, or large transfers alone. Those decisions now required an independent outside co-signer appointed under the trust. That rule applied to Chad. It also applied to me. I wanted the protection to outlast my anger. Reconciliation came slowly. Chad started arriving before 6 twice a week. He walked the floor with Harold. He sat beside Yvonne while she reconciled receivables. When he didn't understand something, she made him ask the question again, without pretending. He stopped giving interviews. One ordinary morning, I found him waiting beside the steel shipping desk. The overnight order sheet rested beneath Janice's trout magnet. Her plaque was back under the sign outside. The first truck idled at the loading dock. I reviewed the invoice and reached for my pen. Chad stayed beside me. "Why do you check the customer number first?" he asked. "Because a correct part sent to the wrong account is still a wrong shipment. And the bank threshold? $15,000. Until when? Until the line is repaid properly or I sign a valid release." He nodded. This time, he wasn't waiting for me to finish so he could take over. He was watching so he could understand. I signed the invoice. Harold raised the loading door, and the truck pulled into the morning light. I learned that gratitude can't be forced, but control should never depend on it. If this happened in your family, tell me what you would have done, subscribe, and come back for the next one.